I was in Belfair, and it's really not quite like the middle of nowhere as like I feel it was. I was there in the dead of winter, which in the Pacific Northwest is really, really dark, which I was not used to. And it was it's kind of like a summer home kind of town. And so Belfair itself was pretty deserted in a lot of ways in the wintertime. It was definitely my hardest area. I love Belfair. It is beautiful. The ward was amazing. The families in that ward, so cool. But definitely the low point in my mission. I'd just been kind of like plucked out of the inner city where I'd been for pretty much like half my mission, and then just like right before all the holidays, like literally right before Thanksgiving through Christmas and New Year's and like all the things, I was just like put into Belfair. It was kind of like overwhelming, but at the same time, like it was just such an adjustment. I was so used to having people everywhere all the time that I could talk to that were like willing to listen to me, even if like they didn't agree with me or anything. Like people in the city are like, they just want to talk like all the time. Granted, sometimes they want to like talk you down, but you can always find people that need you, and like finding is just so much easier, in my opinion, at least with our own efforts of finding. And in Belfair, it was like, where are the people? Where have they all gone? They're all holed up in their houses in the middle of nowhere in the mountains. And like Belfair itself, though, was when I first really like actually realized that Washington was beautiful. Like my first mission president, because I had two, he would kind of like joke every now and then that God spent a little more time on Washington. And being in kind of like this inner city or like in the really left, like people talk about Washington being green and full of trees and lakes and water and sky and nature, and I didn't see any of that for like half my mission. I was like, yeah, it's gorgeous. There's marijuana dispensaries everywhere and like homeless people and no sidewalks, because apparently Washington doesn't believe in sidewalks. But finally in Belfair, like we lived on like just like out on the water, just on this like arm of the Sound, and it was like just gorgeous. It was definitely a bigger blessing than I even realized at the time, because like missionary work is really, really, really hard sometimes. Sometimes it's really hard when you have a companion that like you guys just don't like understand each other, or you just like work differently. And sometimes it's really hard because you just can't find anyone, and like no one will listen to you, or there's literally no one you can find. But I just learned so much, just like God knows what makes us happy. Eternally, it's like the gospel of Jesus Christ. But in like the little things, God knew that like being able to look out over the water and see like sunrises on like the Hood Canal would like just help me, you know? Granted, those have been happening for like forever on the Hood Canal. Like sunrises like didn't just start happening when I got to Belfair, but like I don't know, like tender mercies became like a really big thing for me in Belfair, because I didn't have much else to like really grasp onto. Because like my first year there, I was there for forever, like 5 transfers. I knew everyone. Like I knew everyone in the ward and all their backstories. I know whose children had dated whose children. Like I knew everything, where everyone was from, when they got married. Like the notes that I had on the ward list were just extensive. And so going into a new area with a whole different kind of missionary work in like the middle of winter was definitely a big shock. And so these little things, whether it was just, most of the time it's just how insanely gorgeous like our mission really was, and like how beautiful like people are, and how just like there are just these moments in time where you just want to pause. And I think that's when I really started picking up on that, just that like it's not all like mission is not all hunky-dory and like happy all the time, but it does not mean that you can't be happy. And sometimes it's a really conscious choice, and sometimes it's super obvious that God is giving you something that he knows will make you happy. And Belfair was way cool. We just had, I mean, miracles happen all the time, everywhere. But at the end of 2 transfers of really struggling to find anyone out of nowhere, one of the awesome members in our board was like, "Oh, by the way, you should totally meet my neighbor. I think she wants to be baptized." Like, out of nowhere. And so Belfair is also like the most giant area ever. Ever. Staying under miles was like literally impossible. It was like the struggle of our lives. That we had to go on exchanges all the time with like sisters in Tacoma and like in Bremerton. So we just had to ask for a lot of forgiveness for going over miles by a lot. But she was like, we never would have found Kim because she's literally like just miles and miles and miles away from our house. Like we never would have gone up there. Like unless we had literally had nothing else to do all day and wanted to spend an entire day like going to her town. And so suddenly the last little bit of our second transfer just totally changed because like we were like trying to schedule going out there and getting her ready for baptism and like getting her like to help getting her started on like family history so she could go to the temple and do like family history work. And it was really cool because Kim, her mother had joined the church, and her mom had since passed away, but she'd always felt like this like draw to it, and she really wanted to understand why her mom and like her mom's extended family, like why they were part of this church. And so as she was taking the lessons and as she was like doing all these things to change her life, she was just like, I can feel my mom's presence. Like I know that like she has been just like pushing me along. And it's really cool because Kim's kind of like small and like soft spoken. She didn't talk a lot, but when she did, it was just amazing because you just knew that like this was not our work and that there's so much other help on the other side of the veil. There's so much help from like just so many people that want their families to be able to be together for forever. And so it's way cool because as Kim was being able to do like family history work and like go to the temple, she's like, my family can be together for forever. She's like, this is not something I grew up with. This is not an idea that I ever had. Something I always wanted, but I never knew how. And so just like, it was just these like little things, these little glimpses of like what could make us happy came like all the time in Belfair. Like so fun, so good.